Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Business Spotlight. I'm your host, Todd Rodden. I'm a certified business and executive coach. I own Aspire Action Coach based here in the Dayton, Ohio area. We're thrilled to have you join us today, and I think you're going to find this conversation with Edward Chan extremely informative and enlightening. Edward is an expert in the chemical processing business and industry, got a wealth of training, education, and leadership. And he's going to share with you his journey with starting up a hard tech, climate tech business focused in chemical processing, really an area that's essential to the infrastructure and the success of our country here. So, again, to our viewers, we're thrilled to have you join. Urge you to hit the like and the subscribe button so you can receive future messages as well. But without further ado, Edward Chan, founder and CEO of Metasorbex Corporation. Welcome to the spotlight. Take a second, introduce you, tell yourself a little background, and tell us more about your startup business.
God, thank you so much for the invitation to the podcast. Metasorbex is a hard tech, climate tech startup focusing on a mission to abate emissions, carbon emissions, but turn it into cash. That's basically our business. Now, it's very hard to do. We'll go into that in some more detail later on, but that's basically our business, turning carbon waste into cash.
So how did you get into this of all businesses? How did you get into this crazy business, right?
As a chemical engineer by training, this is an ideal founder business fit for us. When you talk about carbon waste or carbon emissions, typically we want to capture it. And right now we're going to bury it. We call it sequestration. But I think there's a better way. And that's to convert the waste that we capture into something of a reuse or recycle chemical feedstock for the downstream processes. And so that's what we're trying to accomplish is to do the hard work of abating emissions, but at the same time lessening the use of petroleum by converting the waste into a product that can be used again.
So for the viewers here, and I know like I've heard the term carbon capture many times, but I have to say I've never fully understood what that meant. Share me as a practical application, and that kind of leads into who are your ideal customers?
Carbon capture is likening to a Brita water filter. I'm sure you have a filter at home, water filter. Imagine water is the CO2 gas, dirty gas, and the filter is the carbon capture equivalent of the water filter. At the end of it, you have clean water. At the end, we have clean air. What's trapped inside the carbon black, inside the Brita filter, is CO2. Now, chemically, we want to regenerate it to be cost efficient, but for the water filter, you throw it away. So basically, that's carbon capture. We're capturing dirty gas in a canister, a big one, and we regenerate that filter material with a process to release the gas, capture the gas, and then convert it into something useful. So that's basically the carbon capture process.
So then, if you would mind, play that forward into like a practical application, and then, hey, these are the types of customers then that you
Okay.
really could benefit from this technology.
In terms of carbon emissions, there are a lot of industry across the world that need to abate it because if they don't, they're going to pay a penalty, especially in European Union countries. That's been enacted. It's called a Green Deal. And so in terms of a specific application that we are targeting in the chemical industry, they're basically manufacturing plants with factories that emitting CO2, and all of them do. And so our customers are the entire chemical supply chain. So what that means is starting from the oil and gas sector to mine petroleum to the chemical industry that takes the oil and gas into a chemical feedstock, then move on to the next step to create polymers out of it that we use every day, like bottles and things. And then to the packaging companies, such as flexible packaging and rigid packaging, plastics, and then eventually going up to a consumer packaged good company that fill the product inside the bottle. So we are basically starting from the beginning of the chemical supply chain, a lead customer, all the way down to the consumer packaged good companies.
So you talked about, hey, capturing that, and thank you for walking us through kind of that complicated supply chain, right? And there's opportunities, it sounds like, at every step along the way there. So then how does that then get turned into cash? You talked about, hey, that's part of this technology. Besides, just avoiding potential fees or fines, right?
When we talk about carbon emission abatement, when you sit across the desk of a C-level executive, they will throw you out, right? Because there's a cost center. I don't want to talk about uh, adding cost to my process
Right.
because currently the government doesn't require it. But if you sit across the C-level executive and say, I'm going to turn that emission abatement that's going to cost you money, but turn it into a profit stream that you can resell again or reuse again, that turns heads. And this is what we are trying to accomplish is to using the advanced material that we developed, patented, 5 patents to be exact, to create that conversion of capturing and converting that waste into something that's a chemical feedstock.
Okay. So then transforming that then into something they can then use at some other part in their production process, right? And so it's not waste per se, right?
So we are offsetting the cost to abate at the same time adding a profit stream to their business unit to create better looking EBITDA downstream.
Okay. Well, yeah, so essential, obviously in our need to be more green, to be more, sensitive to the environment, as well as, hey, how can we turn this into a profit center, which is at the end of the day, what's going to get large manufacturers' attention is probably right out of the gate as well. So what makes your firm unique then in the marketplace?
Our material is far superior in performance than incumbent. So give me a sense. Our material is 10 times the capacity to absorb. I'll explain what that means later. And 100 times the reuse. That translates into a lower cost of per use basis to capture carbon dioxide. At the same time, a different type of material, same platform based, we're able to demonstrate that 3 times the yield productivity to convert CO2 into methanol. That translates also into lower cost of goods sold. And so basically, we're looking at a lower cost of performance all the way through from capture to conversion. And we're not trying to ask for green premium. We're trying to lower the cost of production. That's our mission.
Okay.
So what that means is we are avoiding policy sensitive type of businesses. If there's a change of administration, change of this, change of that, we are not affected. And from a business standpoint, they want certainty of what comes next. And we're providing that certainty that irrespective of policy changes or what have you, we're going to be fine.
So what is it you wish more people in the market knew about your business and the type of service that you provide?
The business that we're in is kind of an old industry, a mature industry. From a perspective of a venture-backed company, that's not very sexy. We don't have any kind of shining armors to talk about, shiny cars, or AI to talk about. But this is an essential business for us to be good at, having a strong manufacturing base so that we can have national security at the same time have strong employment in the middle class. So what I want folks to think about, the investors specifically, look at the chemical industry as an attractive space to play, to invest. And based on our calculations of return on investment, they can get from 9 to 15x of the investment back.
Okay. 9 to 15x. Man,
X.
that's awesome return. All right. So get people's head. So spending on that. So with that in mind, hey, you've got that level of impact you can make financially. It helps them solve several problems in their supply chain. How are you best marketing, getting that word out in the marketplace, and then generating customers?
You know, as a startup, we always stretch for resources, right? And that's one of the pieces that we're not very good at, to be honest. Right now, what we are doing is basically word of mouth. We are veterans of the industry, so we call on friends and colleagues of ours from distance past and say, "Hey, let's have lunch. Let's talk about this process that you have that you want to mitigate." Um, we need more inbound marketing so that we can get the word out. So uh, we're not good at this facet of the business.
Okay. Okay. So that as you look to the out the front window here, you look at the top challenge or two that you have. Is that getting that word out and marketing more, or are there some other challenges that you're facing?
The marketing piece of it, because we lack of resources, that's something that we need to ramp up. Um, it is it is better to have more inbound than outbound. Now, this particular one uh, channel we are looking at, the podcast, it is somewhat outbound, but at the same time, if we get it broadcasted far enough, we could attract more inbound calls.
So yeah, so that balance of inbound and outbound marketing, and what are the right connection points? Obviously, with your background and your other investors, you've got some good network connections to tap into. But how can you scale beyond that? So you said before we started the call, you mentioned, hey, this is really an idea that was kind of born in 2020. All right, kind of formalized the business a little over a year ago or so. What's been the biggest roadblock you've overcome so far in the journey?
Fundraising in the startup, in venture-backed business is always hard. It is doubly hard because back in 2020, when we started the idea of forming this business, we couldn't travel because of COVID. And then the interest rate shot up. This so-called transitory inflation becoming a pretty significant inflation event. And so with that, the venture funding dried up across the board.
Mhm.
And so right now we're looking at finding a lead investor for our round. We're good having good discussion. It's just that finding a capital to fund a high risk, high return startup is always difficult. But we're making headway.
I'm curious, what networks have you found successful in terms of attracting interest and support from investors?
Believe it or not, this is word of mouth, warm introductions.
Okay.
A lot of VCs don't take phone calls or Zoom calls. But if you got referred to them by one of their portfolio companies, one of their investors, limited partners, they would pick up the phone call and talk to you. So part of what we are doing is we were in several accelerators. What it is this geared for venture-backed companies, and they help to connect the startup with investors. We got several of them that's pretty prestigious in this field, and so we got help from them on connecting us to investors.
Okay. Yeah. So the accelerator community, which there's many of them spread geographically. I thought the U.S. are great ways to plug in, right, and start to build upon the connections you may already have, but to scale even more. So 3, 4 years in, still in startup mode, but what's your vision longer term, Edward? You look down the path, I don't know, 3, 5 years. Where do you dream of having the business?
Before we started the podcast, we talked about the vision of building a physical product. 5 years from now, what I'd like to see is we got this system on a piece of factory that's running carbon capture and conversion. I'm thinking on the order of 5,000 square feet factory that's actually pumping out the product we want to make.
So full elements of the supply chain all kind of coming together.
Yeah, to use the term that the Department of Energy uses, we're going to have a first of a kind equipment that we stand up. So what that means is after that, we basically cookie cutter it, just buy the same thing and just replicate it.
Okay. Okay. Good. Appreciate that. And then in terms of your markets, you mentioned early on about, some in Europe, obviously a lot in the US. Or is there a certain market that you're focused on? And do you see that being your long-term focus, or do you see it eventually scaling more broadly?
In terms of market focus, initially we're going to be looking at methanol as a first product that we're going to be launching. Now, the use of that could be e-fuel, meaning green fuel. It could be going into chemical feedstock to make downstream products. But that's not it. That's just a beachhead we want to get into to get quick revenue out of it. But eventually, we want to look at ethylene and propylene, which is a humongous market for chemical feedstock. The combined five product that we're going to launch in 5 years is going to be $500 billion. Huge market.
Okay. So your TAM, your addressable market is $500 billion, right?
Yeah, TAM is $500 billion. Yeah.
Okay, great. So as a startup, right, usually you got to be very scrappy. I'm curious, how you think about team today, how you're structured in terms of support, and how you're finding and attracting the right expertise to help you on this journey.
You know, like you said about being lack of resources, we beg, borrow, and steal, right? Human resource wise. Folks that we work in the past, they're helping, although they got a full-time job. It's basically selling them the vision that we are going to impact the world, but at the same time we're gonna change the industry of how we're going to produce product that's more sustainable. So the combination of relationship we have in the past, that's what I call beg, borrow, and steal, and having a vision that's compelling enough that they can say, I'm going to help, like a full-time job, but I will help. So that's how we get by.
Okay.
We have some grants from DOD for funding, but that's not enough. That's why we are raising money to get a team built.
Okay. So as you think forward with that, building that team, what are the first kind of roles that you're going to be looking to fill?
Right now, we have a VP of BD, business development. We have a mechanical engineering director. The first few hires going to be all technical, and as we get a product scaled enough that we can say, this is how we're going to launch it. We just got to be a bit bigger, but that's going to change in terms of the physics. The second phase of hiring is going to be sales, right? In business, without sale, there's no business.
Yep.
And so the foundational technology got to be in place. First phase of hire with a bunch of PhDs, engineering. Second phase is going to be sales.
Okay. Yeah, and that balance of scaling, right? You've got to generate the revenue to be able to fund the investments in the technology as well, right? So Edward, and we haven't really gotten into the depth of your background, even prior to this startup as well. Maybe take a minute and talk about some of your key expertise before jumping into starting up Metasorbex. And then as you look over that journey, what have been your keys to success?
My background is a chemical engineering by training, and that's why that I said before that is a good founder business fit. My bachelor was at Caltech, and my PhD was at Princeton, also in chemie. As we say at Caltech, you can take a boy out of tech, but you cannot take a tech out of a boy. And that's who I am. I'm a scientific nerd, and I enjoy that. Typically, when I run into a problem, I didn't ask what, I asked why. And once I figured out why, then I can figure out the solution. And that's how I approach business, technology, or what have you. My first corporate job was with a a large chemical manufacturer in Delaware, and I'm sure you know who that is. Progressed to different management systems, roles into larger entity, and then eventually exited in corporate America into a startup world that is focused on nanomaterials, going back to my nerd background. And we scaled that quite a bit. We got 3 applications that we scaled. And so this one over here at Metasorbex is a combination of the nanoscience that we scaled, commercialized, along with the corporate background that we learned that what to do, what not to do. And that's why the strategy that we have at Metasorbex is so aligned with corporate America. It's because I know that sells.
Mhm. Yeah, you've been there, you've done it.
Yeah.
So you shared that great point. Hey, when you see a problem, don't focus on the what, focus on the why. Are there any other key leadership points you'd want to share? We have a lot of folks who watch this who are kind of earlier in their journeys being an entrepreneur. So any key lessons you want to pass on to them?
Since I'm a CAME by training, I don't hire any CAMEs. I hire folks who are different than me, different in every sense. So give you a perspective, my VP of BD is an English major, right? How am I supposed to talk to this guy, right? But we do. What's common about us is our value that we do want to impact the world. We want to have a sustainable world. That core beliefs, humanity, if you want to call it that, is connected. But how we approach problem is different. And I value that very much. So I'm going to be hiring a bunch of mechanical engineers, chemists, mechanical engineers to help build this company because I know what I know, but I don't know what they know. And so that additivity or complementary skill set, be it technical or be it sales and marketing, is going to propel this company forward.
Great lessons learned. Great, kind of share those forward with folks. So as we look to wrap up here today, Edward, our time flies by very quickly. What are the best ways for folks to connect and follow you and Metasorbex, and they can kind of see the journey that's ahead?
I write on LinkedIn quite a bit, different topics that come across my desk, mostly business and geopolitical impact on business. Very short blurbs, like 2 or 3 sentences long, and if you want to dig deeper, you can do that. But something that's digestible. We have a website, metasorbex.com, and we have several videos that is posted on YouTube if you want to learn about our business.
Okay. Well, as we wrap here, thank you for sharing those connection points. As we wrap here today, Edward, what are you inspired by today?
You know, I complain about raising capital. That's nothing. I mean, we got a roof over our head. We got food to eat, and we're not fighting a war. What inspired me is the Ukrainian civilians is getting bombarded with all kinds of existential threats. Those are the guys that inspire me in the morning to say, look, you got no money, no big deal. Look at those guys over there. But again, this getting bombed. And so it's all perspective, right? Yeah, I complain about stuff, but in the scheme of things, I got nothing to complain about. Those guys in Ukraine have a lot of complaint that we need to address. So
Sure.
that's who inspired me.
Okay. Great perspective, right? I appreciate that. And yeah, we all tend to get caught up in our day-to-day and the little issues that we have, but when you really step back, we're very fortunate, very blessed of what we have here. Well, Edward Chan, thank you for sharing your story. Just exciting technology, right? Critical as we looked at how can we, be more friendly with the our environment. How businesses can actually take that as an opportunity to make changes that actually generate more revenue for them. And you're really on the clear leading edge of technology with your startup. So I know I'm personally excited to see where you go, how you scale, and importantly, the impact your technology and your business is going to have with critical businesses and industries in this country and globally in the coming years. So thank you for sharing your story.
Thanks, Todd. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. And to our viewers, encourage you. We thank you for joining us here today. And again, we encourage you to hit that like button. We do want to feed the algorithms here as well. But also, if you haven't had the chance, hit the subscribe button so you can receive other messages from other very inspiring entrepreneurs like you heard from Edward here today. So with that, we thank you and we hope you all have a terrific day.